very special. This is a very special session for all of us, and it's creative business models for accountants, which for a lot of people sounds a bit confusing. And I think this is part of the interesting part that we're going to dive right into. So before we move forward, feel free to jump over to the website that you see here below at altaccountant.com/creative. And I want to start off by presenting the wonderful people that I'm sharing the stage with. So we have the person that I think you all are very well familiar with. And I think over the course of the years, everybody has learned something very, very smart from. So we have Hector Garcia, who is I think a very masterful implementer of technology and concept, and this is why what we're going to cover today is so interesting. And we have Carlos, Hector's brother, who is a business coach for accountants and is partnered with Hector to build a community, the Alt Accountant community for accountants. So without further ado, I want to give the stage to Hector to take it away.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So, Amri, thank you very much, Anchor, for creating the conduit to communicate the message of creative business models for accountants. As Amri mentioned, Carlos and I are partners in the Alt Accountant community, which is the community that we're building to help accounting professionals be alt, right? Be the alternative of what everybody thinks accountants should be. So like be your own brand, be your own business model, be your own style. So Carlos and I have gone into this journey for a couple of years, and it has culminated, it has became the big conference that we're putting together in Miami. And Anchor is our partner in putting this conference together. As a matter of fact, Anchor was the first one that said, hey, why don't you do a conference and get Ron in there and all that stuff. So we'll discuss that in a second, what that means. So we have a conference in Miami in October, and it's called Creative Business Models for Accountants. But it doesn't stop at the conference. The Creative Business Models for Accountants, it's a movement. It's a movement where Carlos and I are going to continuously tell people, hey, your business model doesn't need to be what everybody else's business model is. It doesn't need to be charging by the hour. It doesn't mean use the 100-year-old business practices that accountants still use today. It could be its own thing. It could be different. It could be a subscription model. So we strongly believe that there's a shakeup that's about to come to our profession. And if you are not the one that's the driver of that shakeup, then that shakeup is going to happen onto you. So we believe that this message of creative business models and the conference, if you want to learn in depth, is going to help you. Then we're going to talk about an innovation exercise. So kind of a preview to the conference. We're going to do mostly creative thinking at the conference. And some of the creative thinking is thinking of abstract concepts, or think about other industries and other things that have nothing to do with accounting, but with the sole purpose to get you help you forget a little bit about profit and loss and bookkeeping customers and customers not paying in time and not giving you their W-2s for tax returns. I want you to forget briefly about the day-to-day issues with your customers and think in total abstract, in total creative thought. And then hopefully from there, you're able to think about and build strategies that will get you thinking into a different business model for your firm. So we're going to do the subscribe to the issue exercise example for you guys, so you kind of see how that goes. And then we'll close it with crafting the offer. So how do we materialize this brainstorming? How do we convert it into something that we can show a customer and go, hey, would you subscribe to a shoe or to a pair of shoes or to our shoe subscription? And we'll discuss kind of the ideas that went behind that. And then we'll leave some time for Q&A. So now you get a general idea exactly what we're going to be discussing today. I think this is going to be a fun hour. Let me start by talking about the conference. So Creative Business Models for Accountants is in Miami. It's in Coral Gables, Florida. Is October 26 and 27 are sort of the main creative business model for accountants conference. And then we're going to have a chat GPT day. Why? Because like ChatGPT and AI is at the backdrop of all transformations in probably all industries. And I want to make sure that even though creative business models and being creative, it's a sort of a lifetime skill, there is a short-term skill that we need to catch up with, which is, hey, artificial intelligence is going to be used in the forefront of people showcasing their innovations. But I truly believe that AI should become the backdrop, whereas your creative thinking should be in the forefront. So I'm trying to juxtapose these two concepts where most people are thinking that, hey, creative thinking is taking a backseat because everybody is pushing towards AI, and AI is gonna replace all of us. But I think that's not true. I think AI will be a tool for you to be able to use your creative thinking. Like only humans can be creative. Computers can only regurgitate or repeat other creative thoughts by other humans. I mean, look, OpenAI is being sued by tons of authors. J.K. Rowling's the author of Harry Potter, because a couple of weeks ago you can ask ChatGPT, hey, in the style of Harry Potter, tell me this, tell me that, and it would be so accurate to the books that the only way that the AI could do that is if the AI read the books and it's part of the internal intelligence of the AI itself to be using the context of the books. But so AI wasn't never really creative. All it did is repeat somebody else's creative works, right? No one's going to be able to replace J.K. Rowling's the author. Like you'll be able to repeat it, regurgitate it, but they won't. So what will withstand the test of time is our creative thinking. It's the one thing that will make us stand out from any machine, from any automation, from any software that tries to quote unquote replace us. And that's what we want to focus on at the conference. That's the stuff that we want to help you bring out, because we think everybody has the power to be creative. We can't teach you to be creative. We can only teach you how to bring it out into the open. So that's going to be the conference, couple of keynotes, group exercises, group coaching. That's what's going to be all about. The conference is $1,000 per attendee. We have a limit of 100 attendees for the whole conference. We have 13 tickets left as of August the 23rd. We have one of my mentors and my heroes, Ron Baker, on the main stage, sort of setting up the premise for this. And another hero of mine and a hero of Carlos, a mentor for Carlos, Chris Do, who's like sort of purely creative. So we have this super analytical Ron Baker and this purely creative person, Chris Do, on stage, sort of crashing ideas. And that's really where we think the magic is going to happen. And then we have a couple of group coaches, such as Vanessa Vasquez, Pro Advisor of the Year, QuickBooks Pro Advisor of the Year, and a couple other people that are going to be briefed on all these exercises, and they're going to be in the groups. So people are going to be breaking down into maybe 9 or 10 persons per group, and all the exercises will be done in this small group with the coaches walking around. So we're super excited about this. I don't think a lot of conferences, or possibly maybe not any in our space in the accounting industry, have done something like this. I'm also very happy and very thankful for Anchor for being a headline sponsor to the conference. So last thing here is, and you have it in the slides, we'll make the slides available to everybody that attended live. And if you're watching this in YouTube afterwards, we'll put links to the slides as well. There's the bio for Ron Baker, one of the keynote speakers, the bio for Chris Do, one of the keynote speakers, and the bio for our main coach, or sort of a group coach, Vanessa Vasquez. So if you want to check them out as well. It's going to be in a beautiful hotel called Hotel Colonnade in Coral Gables, in the corner of Miracle Mile and Ponce de Leon, which might mean nothing to you, but for Miami, it's a big deal. It's a really cool corner. There's tons of things to do in the area. For people watching this webinar, for Anchor users, there's a coupon code Anchor100, which will give you $100 off. The coupon is set to expire at the end of August, or when the tickets sell out. Once the conference sells out, that's it. We're done. We'll move on. So that being said, Carlos, maybe you can tell us your perspective as a non-accountant when you hear the concept of, quote, creative accountant.
Yeah, well, if anyone that knows how Miami rolls when it comes to accountants, there's not really a good association with accountants in Miami. Not always, right? But if you're an accountant and you think about someone saying, I have a creative accountant, the public would probably interpret that as someone who is looking to either probably cut corners or find creative ways to do your taxes or do your accounting so that you minimize your tax liability, etc. And that's not what we're referring to here at all today. If anything, we're trying to reframe that. So as Hector advances the slide, you'll see that the myth or the misinterpretation of what it is, it's not about shady practices. It's not about cutting corners. It's not about short-term gains. What we really want to do is reframe the importance of using your right brain thinking, which is your creative aspect, because from the book A Whole New Mind, Daniel Pink talks about that as automation advances and technology advances, the right brain thinking will become more valued. And that's what we're really here to demonstrate today. So Hector will share with you what it is that a creative thinking accountant really is.
Okay, yeah, I had to unmute myself for a second. So creative thinking is innovative strategies, not just for yourself as building a business around, having a different strategy than everybody else, also helping your clients to come up with innovative strategies, such as identifying new revenue streams, growth opportunities, and maybe even telling your client what not to do. And like I've heard this from Tim Williams talk about his definition of strategy. His definition of strategy is what you're not doing, what you decided not to do. Because sometimes what you don't do, or the clients that you don't take, or the work you don't take, says a lot about your strategy. So sometimes strategy is not always just giving ideas to add. Sometimes it's saying, hey, would it make sense for you to get rid of this or get rid of that? So that's really innovative thinking. Most accountants that would be heresy to tell your client to like remove a line of business or remove a product. And sometimes, truly creative thinking requires not only adding stuff, sometimes subtracting stuff. There's also having a customer-centric approach. So accountants for a very long time have been mostly worried about their cost, their time, how long it's going to take them to do X, Y, or Z, which is why they charge by the hour, right? Or they bill in arrears by the hour. But if my friend Ron Baker says that what inspired him to look at value-based pricing is that hourly billing or hourly pricing, hourly charging, whatever you want to call it, is a crummy customer experience. Almost every customer is going to go in and go, wait, it really took you 30 minutes to do that? It really took you 4 hours to do that? You're really going to charge me 7 minutes for a phone call? I mean, the reality is, if you're charging somebody based on time, is this most customer uncentric approach. So if you really want to get creative about being an accountant, is, hey, think of your services from your customer's perspective. Okay. And that's really going to get you thinking just completely in a different point of view. Also, problem solving. Okay. Like, most of the times we think about, accountants think about problems as something that the customer has. And the only truly problem that we end up solving is a balance sheet not balancing, an account not reconciling, or a tax liability being negotiated with the IRS. Yeah, that is problem solving, and you better do that very well. That's table stakes. But sometimes you're sitting down with your client and thinking differently, or giving your clients a different perspective from a creative point of view. You're going to really be helping your clients solve some problems. So we believe that's going to be really important. My friend Doug Sleater says agility trumps ability. Okay, basically what that means is being able to switch back and forth from different technologies, being able to switch back and forth from different topics of conversation. This is why my friend Ron Baker says that the wisdom comes from the non-business books, right? Because it's when you really talk about things that are not like linear as business, MBA type of stuff. Like you're thinking about other topics, other pieces of literature that give you just a different perspective. That's really where the truly interesting people to talk to are, and those people are generally mostly adaptable. That means they could talk about anything at any point in time, and they could also move back and forth, market conditions, regulatory issues, industries, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't specialize. That's a different issue. I think you should definitely 100% specialize. That's a different topic altogether. And I'm not talking about not doing that. I'm just talking about the ability to be agile, right? The ability to be adaptable. So agility trumps ability. I love that line from Doug Sleater. And of course, any sort of value-added services are almost always going to be creative, right? Because Anybody can start an accounting firm, and they can Google services the accounting firms offer, and the answers are going to be bookkeeping, tax returns, payroll, right? So like, that's not creative. Creative would be just going way beyond that. And it sounds trite. People say advisory services, and people are sort of like tired of hitting the concept. Look, advisory services is basically catch all for anything you can think of. And that's a really important point, right? So the reason why most people get frustrated by people saying offer advisory services, but then they kind of don't hear what those advisory services are supposed to be. People are saying, wait, can you give me a list of what advisory services are? And that's the stuff that frustrates me too, because advisory services is supposed to mean people are going to pay you, or they're going to hire you, or subscribe to you because they trust your judgment. They trust your different point of view. There's no bullet point list of like different judgment and different point of view that you can list on a website or anywhere. That's what advisory services is people saying, I like having a professional like you by my side because I could always ask them a question and get some sort of different perspective. And that different perspective itself is what allows that client to be in creative thought too, because most business owners try to find the sort of cookie cutter answers everywhere. And it isn't until somebody they trust and love and respect gives them a different perspective, and sometimes even an opposing perspective, that they go, the possibility that I was wrong with this idea or strategy, it's now a reality. And now, how can I start thinking about the alternatives? And that alternative thinking about the alternatives, that's the stuff that's the creativity that we're starving for, I would say. So Carlos, let's talk about subscribing to a shoe. And so a quick background, we've done this creative business models for accountants in many webinars, in many formats with different communities. And we've done exercises with a blender. How would you subscribe to a blender? Or an avocado. How would you subscribe to an avocado? And this idea really came from my friend Ed Kless, who's the co-host of the Soul of Enterprise, with one of the persons in the one of the headliners in the conference, Ron, where it was maybe 5 years ago, they broke us up into groups and they gave us random things: a guitar, a refrigerator, a roof for a house, and just sit there for an hour and talk to each other about how would you subscribe to this thing. Total abstract thought. For a minute, I stopped thinking about accounting for a second, and it really made me think deeply. And I'm bringing this exercise again to this conference because it's brilliant, and also because most of the creative thoughts I've had in the last couple of years have come from this weird little exercise of subscribe to X inanimate object, right? And so we did the exercise, and I'm going to save you the time, the actual brainstorming. We have a very specific model for brainstorming. We have specific set of questions that we ask each other, and there's a whole framework of how you get to the answer. But long story short, the purpose of the brainstorming is so we can design a business model from scratch, okay? And we're going to take this concept of grabbing a product, right, that maybe at this point that maybe there is a shoe subscription service, but let's assume for a second that we're not aware of such a thing. So it's a brand new business that doesn't exist. That's a really important piece. So we're going to pick this product that you normally would buy once, and you reframe it into perpetually paying for that product forever. So think about, I'm used to buying shoes. They cost $100. Once the shoes are done, I throw them away. I go to the next pair of shoes. Okay. But think about, as a customer, if you can no longer buy shoes and the only option that you had was to subscribe to the shoes, what would you need to get in exchange for you to perpetually pay that company to give you access to shoes? And then you also want to think about, and during the brainstorming exercise, is it just shoes? Is it shoes and socks? Are there alternatives to shoes? I mean, shoes is just a means to an end. We're covering our feet so we don't get cold or cut our feet while we're taking a pathway through life, right? So while we're moving from point A to point B. So think about what shoes represent as a whole, not just the shoe, but everything that's around the shoe. Then you want to draw out the true value proposition. So are you buying a shoe, or are you subscribing to foot comfort? Okay, It's the same thing, but it's just completely reframed. Then you want to come up with a price and a core service offering, like sort of like your go-to-market core service offering. And I like to do, you don't have to do this because this comes borrowed from the sort of the value pricing world. But to come up with that, once you come up with the core offering, and I strongly believe come up with your core offering first, then come up with a lower price option with lessened scope and a higher price option with a broadened scope. And by broadened scope means you give people more stuff, like more value, and that value is not necessarily more shoes or more things. It could be things around the shoes. It could be a subscription to a shoe culture magazine. It could be access to like the shoe expert webinars where people talk about shoes and the history of shoes. I mean, you could get really creative with this stuff, but the nice thing is then allows you to provide the proverbial good, better, best approach. Then you want to give the service offerings a name. You need to have a name. Like without the name, it makes it very difficult because most of us don't assign any meaning to anything until it has a label. Okay, the label itself, and you got to be careful with the label too, because the wrong label could also send the person's thinking in a whole different direction. But giving it a label is really important, and the label can change, not a problem. But you give it a label, and once you give a label, you give a significance and you give a meaning. And also you can give sub names to each of the specific options that we'll show you exactly what we came up with. And then lastly, you would use what I recommend doing, and this is something I added probably in the last 6 months of my thinking around this, is instead of just leaving it in a PowerPoint presentation in a notepad, put it in a pricing proposal service agreement tool like Anchor. So that way it gives you an idea and a feeling of tangibility, and you can send it to a customer or send it to a friend and say, hey, would you subscribe to this? And it really isn't until you see it on a screen and you can choose option 1 and you can click subscribe and put your credit card, where it doesn't truly feel like a transaction. And I think, and the subscription model is something that I'm very, very interested in. I think that your customers ultimately will give you your feedback in a very simple matter. I'm happy with your service, I subscribe. I'm unhappy with your service, I unsubscribe. No need to have a long drawn out conversation about it. Although, getting feedback from your customers when you lose a subscriber, obviously that's important. But I mean, generally speaking, customers want the least amount of friction to value, the shortest path to value with the least amount of friction. And I think the business models of the future are going to gravitate towards the easiest way to offer value quickly and make it frictionless to hop on or hop off. And those two things are really, really important. So, Carlos, you want to talk about drafting a positioning statement and maybe using ChatGPT to help us brainstorm?
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, since the conference is talking about how do we use technology, and then also with our creative thinking, we heavily focus a lot on using ChatGPT as our collaboration partner. So what we do is we want to prompt it to say, hey, here's what we're thinking about doing. In this exercise, we're talking about a shoe subscription, but as you envision yourself drafting what it would look like to create a subscription to accounting services, you want to be able to provide context to ChatGPT and make them your partner in the creative thinking process. And so what we've done here is we've told ChatGPT, this is what the product that we're looking to launch. This is our vision. This is our client target. This is the service offering. And then we prompted it to say, I want you to be able to bring these concepts together and give us a couple of ideas of examples of what would be some of those, vision statements or some of those catchy mottos or things that would allow the final audience to understand what it is that they're accessing and they're subscribing to, other than just a product or service, right? It's a lifestyle, it's a feeling, it's an identity, it's a sense of status. So Hector, I don't know if you want to
add. What I wanted to add is I'm showing on the screen the ChatGPT conversation that we've had in the Blender example that I did with my friend Ron and Ed, and then how I brought in the shoe concept afterwards. So I'm actually making this shareable, and we'll put this on the slides. And again, we're going to email everybody their slides, or if you're watching this on YouTube after it goes live, you'll see the link in the bottom where you can actually see how we came, like how we came up contextually and primed ChatGPT to be our brainstorming partner. And by the way, I wanted to add something. We're encouraging you to use ChatGPT as your brainstorming partner when you don't have another human being available. There's nothing more valuable than having another human being to brainstorm with. But sometimes that person might not be available, or maybe you guys are stuck, in one of the questions from the framework. It's incredible how you could dump this stuff into ChatGPT, and sometimes ChatGPT is really good at giving things labels, like coming up with names. Okay, like ChatGPT came up with 3 options: soul essentials, style enthusiast, and elite footwear. So Carlos, maybe you can tell us like what these things mean to you in terms of like 3 options that you can offer to your customers in this proverbial shoe subscription.
Yeah, so this is the same concept of that good, better, best. That we think about soul, with the play on words of, the shoe sole, right? And then essentials, you're basically subscribing to the entry level subscription service. Style enthusiast, again, you're leveling up that status and access, and it's more about the identity of the culture of being a sneakerhead, if you will. And then elite footwear, again, kind of puts you in that, hey, I identify myself as someone who is all in, fully invested in wanting to take advantage of all the perks and immerse myself into the access and all the perks that come with these services. And so ChatGPT, I just said, hey, here's what I want to do. I need a good, better, best, and give me something catchy name for each of them that would describe that for that audience.
And ChatGPT should only be inspiration. We're not telling anybody here that the next business model is going to be completely drafted out of ChatGPT. I think it will not. I think that if somebody comes up with a business model from ChatGPT, it would fail. But I think that the humans applying creativity and thinking and smart prompting, ChatGPT giving them feedback, again, it's just this is the mathematical version of words. Like if Excel was in words instead of numbers, where you take averages and multiplications and sums and correlations, if you were to do the mathematical version of wordsmithing, ChatGPT is incredible for that. They figured out how to turn math into words and vice versa. So definitely use it as a brainstorming partner, but in no way, shape, or form we're encouraging you to build a business model out of ChatGPT. Although, maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe the next big business would be a completely AI average calculated business model, but I doubt it. Carlos, I'm gonna give you sharing so we can talk about the really cool thing about this, which is after you brainstorm, after you come up with the ideas, how do you put it together in a tangible way where people can see, okay, this is how I would subscribe to a shoe. So let me pause my share here. I'll stop my share. And I don't know if I have to make you host, Carlos, or let me see.
Yeah, you should be able to see my screen now. So
yeah.
if you are in a platform like Anchor, which gives us the technological ability to build out packages, ideally what you do is you build out your option A, B, and C. And then when you are adding a service, you can create what you want to name it and what to include in each of the description of what comes with each service. So ideally, you want to mirror this with the way your website, so how could you put this inside your website so that folks can also subscribe to it? But of course, if we're talking about accounting services, this would be a more personalized type of proposal. But if you wanted to make this public, this is essentially what it looked like. And it's a very similar experience to when you log into QuickBooks, right? And you're trying to subscribe to one of those software options. And so the technology allows you to do that. So if we're using a core services, these are some examples of what comes with, you have one pair at a time. This reminds me a lot of the old school Netflix subscription, right? When we used to subscribe to Netflix DVDs, if everybody remembers. And then you have a queue of all of the movies that you wanted to watch. And then when you turn that movie back in, the next movie comes along. So imagine you going into the shoe inventory website with that limited access, and you have your queue of what shoes you want to wear. You ship them back and then the next shoe is just coming right on the way as long as you're subscribed to it. Now for the style enthusiast, again, when we built the package, we were able to expand the offering where you can have multiple pairs for those who want to, constantly be in style. And then we add more perks to access. Imagine how you would do this for accounting services. How would you expand the access to the expertise of your services, or a community that you can provide, say a Facebook group, or some other types of expanded access, because they're paying the premium for those additional perks. And then we have the elite footwear, again, where you build a more premium type of offering. They have premium selection, VIP access, personal styling services, exclusive event access. So maybe early access to new shoe releases or things of that nature, and then access to even more higher end or even rare shoes. If you all don't know, I know we're talking about shoes, but the sneaker economy is ridiculously popular. It's like $131 billion a year industry, and by 2031 it's looking to be double that. So again, we picked this is what I came up with, because I thought of, why don't people subscribe to shoes? And it's like they're going through it, like, and so it's just a concept to think about. And again, having a platform to make it easy for them to click and subscribe really makes it easy for you to make your service offering more appealing.
One thing I want to add, Carlos, is all these. If you go back to the pop-up of the description of the product again, this what you see here is what the creative business process. I mean, the creative modeling process is, right? Like we come up with the three options, or one option or two options, and the description to those options. This all happens prior, and then this happens in a white piece of paper. It happens in a white whiteboard. It happens in post-it notes. It happens in a PowerPoint presentation. Like there's all sorts of ways you can brainstorm about this, but it just feels real. It just feels real when it's down to the three options the customer has to choose. And what's really cool about it is even you could do matrix of options. So, for example, this is all monthly, right? I believe, let me see, click out for a second. These are all monthly options. So Carlos, maybe show us, like, how would you go about doing maybe like a quarterly pricing or annual pricing, same subscription, but then show us what that looks like when the customer gets to choose the subscription at the end.
Yeah, so if we do the client preview, then they have the month, annual, and the quarterly. Obviously, you would want to order it accordingly, but you can also, pre-package those inside of the service offering. So you could customize that how you prefer as you add the services. So you do have to build a new service every time, right? So when you click the service, you define what it's called. You choose what price you want to give it. You maybe add additional perks or put all the description. How often do you want to build them, right? And so this is the mechanics behind the scenes, but from the client view standpoint, this is what it would look like when they are, selecting that package.
I'll just add that it's possible to add a lot more things into that creativity in terms of pricing. You can play with discounts that will give people the impression that you're coming, towards them, but are signifying, the future price that they'll come up to, or how you're building it towards the higher elite packages.
Yep. And it's very simple to set up, obviously you have to pre-build the services, but as you do that, you're able to take care of that, send it to your client, and then, they get a chance to see the options and make those decisions. So I'm just finalizing what the final view would look like, so you guys get an idea of it.
So you're building the same three options, and within each option, there's a variability in frequency.
Yes.
And then if a customer were to then select one of these, what does the next screen look like? Just so, okay, so the customer picked their option and they go next, and then it just sort of breaks down the things for them. Okay, perfect.
Yep, they review the terms, which one it would be. It would have to be selected as, if they're looking to do. I think, Omri, maybe you might help us here. They have to pick one of these three services, because right now I think I'm framing it in a way where all three of them will happen.
All three are being shown, right, right.
So basically, it's all a matter of the setup, but you have complete freedom to create whatever format you want. It could be, you can even in the same package include a few different type of, let's call it, billing models, where some will, have an advanced feature to them that the billing will take place immediately. And then at the end of the month, so you're really able to mix and match different types and, diversify even within the same package. And I think something that we've previously shown is that you have the ability to include add-ons for more diversity within each package, that people can actually just opt in for more things without jumping to the next level in terms of the package. And what we've seen before is that they have complete freedom to choose how they pay. So they can opt in for an ACH, which is free, or a credit card, where if they choose to pay it, then by default, the fee is on the client and not on the accountant, because we're giving them a free valid option. Naturally, you can choose it, but that's the default.
So let's since we have some time here, let's start discussing. Okay, what you can stop sharing. Perfect. So what would this look like, sort of like in the accounting world? Like, say, I think a lot of people, most people in this live webinar and watching the recording afterwards are all accountants, accounting professionals, bookkeepers, tax preparers. Like, okay, I get it. Okay, you could build an idea of how to subscribe to a shoe. What does it look like in our world? Well, let's just take a look at a very simple example. Okay, a tax return. Okay, most accountants, they'll do, let's say, a corporate tax return for $1,500, and that's what the universe looks like. A customer calls them and says, how much would you do my tax return for? And then you say 1,500. Okay, simple. And let's assume you already know how big the company is and all the sort of moving parts that could affect the price of that tax return. But what if you ask, instead of just saying 1,500, you spend 2 minutes with a customer and go, let me find out more or less what you need, and then I'm going to propose to you some options, and you can pick the option that works best for you. And then you speak to the customer for a couple of minutes, you find out what's important to them, you ask questions about what's important for you, for me to do it as fast as possible or as accurate as possible. And this could be redundant questions. Most people are going to tell you, I wanted you to do it as as accurate as possible. Of course, I don't care about speed if I'm going to get an IRS penalty. Or some people can tell you, look, I need it to be accurate. I need it to be fast. Okay. Now they're starting to give you really good information where you can go beyond just offering $1,500 for a tax return. You can offer, $1,800 to have it done next week, $1,500 to do it, a month from now or whatever, maybe $1,200 as a lower option. Like, so let's go one step lower from the core to have it done after summer, because we're going to extend it. So you can already very easily start offering options, and then you can quickly go into Anchor and pull the 3 options, send the customer the options. But what if we take it one step further? What if we say, we don't sell tax returns, you can subscribe to tax compliance? It's a different way of reframing it. Now, it's very difficult to just explain the reframing without having the thing on the screen where people can read and go, okay, that's the button where I get to subscribe to tax compliance. Like when you talk about it, it just feels like an abstract concept. But when it's on the screen and it's an option and you can compare it between your $1,500 tax return or subscribing to tax compliance, it's a whole nother ballgame. So Carlos, maybe share your screen again and we'll walk you through it, because Carlos is not an accountant. He doesn't have Anchor, and he's helped us with accounting. So what we can do is we could build it sort of from scratch, and we won't get into really in depth. So let's go back into the home screen and let's start just building the service. Okay, so we're gonna go in there and and go to services and just build the first service. We'll just do simple, easy, the 1500 tax return. So let's put here corporate tax return. And then we'll put in parentheses, maybe 1120 or something like that, assuming you have multiple offerings. And then on the description, we can put 2022 corporate tax return for businesses under $1 million in sales or something like that, right? Because you could have tiered pricing in your firm. That's very common. Okay, so that's a core offering, and that's going to be a one-time, and we said $1,500. Okay, and then the billing trigger, just to give you a general idea, that would be like, okay, so the customer subscribes or pays you, agree, they agree to your terms, and then like when are they going to be actually charging the money? So I like automatically agreement upon approval, because I like the fact that people go buy, that's when they pay, done. That way we get the money conversation out of the way, and then we focus 100% on providing the service. So let's do save. Okay, and then let's add a new product for, let's call it Audit Protect. Okay, we'll call it Audit Protect Corporate Returns or something like that. And then we'll charge separately, sort of to sell an insurance per se. And let's say that's going to be, and I generally want it to be more expensive than the tax return. So make that maybe $3,200. And on the description, we put 7-year guarantee, no change, no penalties on the tax return. Okay, and you're gonna see, like, when you actually see this, like from a perspective of the customer, you're gonna go, whoa, holy crap, this is a huge opportunity here. And we're just in tax as the example. And then let's do a new service, and we'll call it Corporate Tax Return Compliance. And look, if you were to sell a tax return for $1,500 and then the Audit Protect for $3,200, okay, that's over $5,000 or more. What would you charge monthly for something like this? Okay, and then also keep in mind that most people are not going to choose the Audit Protect. So Audit Protect really is like this super gravy sort of item. So you could do a monthly. So let's change that to monthly. Let's do monthly. Let's do maybe $400 monthly. And on the fixed price, let's see what we have other options in fixed price, although I think we should be okay. Yeah, just like that, $400. And then on the description, you just put subscribe to our tax firm, comma, includes colon, and then we start with the bullet points. Okay, so first bullet point, annual tax return preparation. Let's do all IRS letters, comma, and or just no comma, and examinations managed by tax firm, quarterly tax planning, and estimated payments. And let's put unlimited tax questions and email support or something like that. And let's save that. Okay, so now let's send the customer an agreement that gives them 2 choices. Choice number 1 would be the package of the tax return. So that would be just tax return. You put 2022 tax return, you can put there. Okay, and then in there, we're going to have 2 services. Okay, and the second one, you can call it, yeah.
Are we just
just two options. We're making it very simple. So then option number 2 would be tax compliance subscription. And what I love about Anchor in particular, and trust me, I've looked at many proposal softwares, and the reason why we're sitting here doing this webinar is because I chose Anchor for my firm because I'm switching to I started switching to subscriptions starting September of starting August of 2023, and all the proposals and all of our customers starting September are going to be on subscription. I chose this because it's like so simple, so easy to use. I absolutely love the app, and I'll take some credit for some of the improvements they've made because I've given Anchor some personal suggestions as well. So Carlos, sorry, go ahead and pick the tax return and the audit guarantee.
Okay.
And we'll do it in that order too. So the tax return and the audit guarantee. You can start. Yeah, there you go.
Just do this first.
Perfect. And what's really cool about this is you can choose which of these they must take and which ones are optional. So if you look at the advanced settings on the Audit Protect, the Audit Protect is optional. Yeah, perfect. And then you can either include it on the proposal or not include it. Basically means, does the customer see that up front, or do they get the choice to add it later? And I like that because usually you don't sell Audit Protect. You want to make it a sort of separate thing, unless in your phone conversation, people say, yeah, obviously, I definitely want Audit Protect. Okay, so let's go and let's save that. Let's go to the next package, actually. And the next package would just be the subscription. Perfect. I think we can build a proposal just with that. And look, check it out. Within minutes after you're talking to your client, that they'll get an email that has the two options: the $1,500 pay once tax return, or the tax compliance subscription. If you click on the little I, then you get that little the additional description of the products, and you appreciate it much more in the one that had the bullet points. It's got more information. Okay, so let's say the customer picks the first one, just sort of the one-time deal tax return, and they go next. And then they get to add the Audit Protect. So they get to add it or not. And then in the top, it shows you the total amount, which is, $4,700. Okay. And it says build once, letting you know that it's a one-time payment. Because remember, when you're transforming your business model, you might also be transforming how you get paid, right? The frequency, what it is tied to, what triggers a payment. Like all these things are going to be part of the business model innovation, I believe. So let's say the customer wants to look at the other options. So let's go back. And what's cool is it doesn't let you pick both. So it's smart enough to know, hey, it's either one or the other. So we go to next. And then you can expand that and you can see the bullet points and everything that's in there. So then the customer approves the service. And then if you have a fully active account, people can put the credit card number and they're done. Now, the other thing I want to add, and Carlos, you went through it kind of quickly, I apologize, go back for a second, is Anchor built this sort of cookie cutter agreement for us. So when you first set up this through Anchor and don't load your own agreement, if you open terms and conditions for a second, Carlos, that cookie cutter deal, the agreement's going to be there, but you can copy and paste that into your Word and then modify it as you see fit. Or maybe if you have an attorney that drafted your own agreement, you have it in there. So the process of choosing the service, right? Choosing whether it's a one-time or subscription or one of the 3 subscription options, whether it's a tax return or shoes, okay? It's going to be basically 2 clicks. And then once you click on approved terms, you're doing 2 things. You're choosing to subscribe, choosing the package, and agreeing all at the same time. You can't beat that. I don't think there's another app out there that's sort of meant to solve this very specific issue. So then they choose how they want to pay you. And you could choose for Anchor not to collect the payment. Like if you want to get a check from a customer, you can. Although I strongly believe that you should tie this to electronic payments, because I wouldn't start the work until I know I have a credit card on file or a bank account on file. So it's more of a best practice for you not to sort of manage payments outside, for you to use the entire process to do that. And what's also crazy about Anchor in particular, and not trying to do an infomercial on Anchor, although this is Anchor's webinar, but is that instead of this being an app that you pay for like $100 a month or $300 a month or whatever for proposal software, they just charge per transaction. So just to make it easy, you have tons of clients and tons of agreements that you process through Anchor. You're going to pay more. And is that Omri? I know I'm paying $5 per transaction. Has that changed, or is that
The concept
different?
is we wanted to make sure that we align our own interest with our client's interest. So we want to get paid when you get paid. We all, we're consumer of SaaS products as well. And, many of the times you have a lot of features and you use 10%, but you pay for everything. So we decided to basically switch it. You have everything without paying, and you're actually not paying. We deduct, let's say it's $1,000 invoice. So we will process everything and transfer 995. But everything up until that point is free. So the signatures, the proposals, the auto invoicing, all of it is free until.
And you do want to keep in mind that if there's a credit card, there's a credit card fee, right? It's 3%. Like everybody pays 3% for credit card fees. I mean, there's not really much to do there. But instead of you having to itemize and add the 3% to your credit card, like a lot of people into your invoice, like a lot of people do, Anchor will automatically do that if you tell it that you want the customer to pay the credit card fee instead of you paying for, and you get the choice for that. Carlos, we have some questions. Maybe you want to open up the slides. Go ahead, Amri. Sorry.
So basically, when we started this was, something that we felt was wrong for service providers. We felt like, we were financing our clients in a way. And when we tested it, when we started, we didn't know how clients will actually react. And the reality is that we see zero friction. So the default used to be that you have to choose to, have the fees on the client. Right now, it's the opposite, because for the client, it's one payment. For you as the service provider, it's accumulated. So that's actually like 2.9% can go like directly to your bottom line. And we're giving them a free valid option. So like integrity wise, we feel very comfortable with this.
Exactly. So Omri, really quick, elevator pitch. Why is Anchoring sponsoring our conference in Miami?
So I have one word, Hector. But the reality is that I think we love to be a technology partner for things that are in line with what we believe in. And we believe a part of our values is exponential value. We're looking to everything that we engage with, we're looking to add 10x more value than what we get. And I see what you're doing, and I think I got together with Ron Baker, who I think is a very inspiring person. He has an incredible vision, and he wants to push our industry to the next level continuously. And what I loved about you, apart from the fact that you're on spot and super wise, is the fact that you're an implementer of a vision. So I think the combination of these two things drew me in very, very naturally. And I think more than anything, I'm privileged to be able to participate in this and to be, part of this mastermind. So nothing but being grateful. And I hope that we're able to make a dent in our industry and make it easy. Because right now, what we're experiencing with our clients and with people meeting, within the community and conferences is, a tech stack overload, a lot of, just moving parts, and we want to simplify it so that they can actually concentrate on, maybe more creative aspects and actually, getting closer to why they started a business rather than chasing around their tails. So.
Yeah. So and the feeling is mutual. If I and inspired by Ron Baker and all the people's shoulders that I stand on when it comes to rethinking the business model for accountants, we need technological partners, because yes, all the creativity comes from our brain, all the innovation essentially will come from our brain, but when it comes to execution, showing the customer the having the mechanism for people to subscribe and unsubscribe, to agree to the terms. You're simplifying the offer. This whole concept of frictionless is going to be facilitated by technology, one way, shape, or form, right? Because you're not going to be able to sit in the customer's shoulder every single time and go, yeah, you need this, you need that, to make it 100% frictionless. They're going to have to log in somewhere to be able to access you, talk to you, access your work product, communicate, all that stuff. And we need technology for that. And I think Anchor got it right. I think they saw the vision, right? You know, the professional services will probably move to subscription. Professional services are going to need a simple gateway for people to subscribe and unsubscribe. And I think Anchor got it right. You also want to think about other ways to revolutionize or reframe the whole frictionless concept with your small business clients. For example, how are you delivering your products or services? Are you emailing them a P&L and balance sheet? You know, are you putting them in a Dropbox? Are you doing this really this process that honestly has a lot of friction? Is there a practice management system? Is there a an app where customers can log in and they can see their P&L, see their balance sheet, understand them, interact with them? Could you even add stuff like like a chat GPT custom where customers can, that chat GPT could be the first line of defense in asking questions that sounds like you, that sort of thing. So yeah, technology is going to take a big part of it. And we only got a few minutes left, but I want to be able to answer all the questions. Carlos, do you see, or maybe Omri or Talia who's monitoring, are there any questions that haven't been answered from the chat?
While Talia is looking, I'll just, I want to say that I think I really feel that what you said about Ron and standing on, other people's shoulders means a lot in this case, and specifically in terms of innovation. When you said that we should look into things that are outside of accounting, I think like what we've done here is look outside of the way that our industry works normally. And when we're looking at how we want to, engage with our clients, we're looking at, what's happening to us as consumers. We're like, we want the Amazon experience to, when we're being served, but we're actually, when we want to get paid, we're sending our clients to work. So we try to look at it and see how we can make it different. So I think a good maybe note is to see, normally when you get a proposal, it's a lot of text. It's text that most clients just whiz through, and they're looking for the bottom line. So we decided to just flip it, give you the bottom line first and then all the words below. And it's a very, very simple change, but in terms of the effectiveness of how it converts a proposal and the ease for the client, it's dramatic. So I think these kind of improvements and little things are things that we'll, continue to touch on. And I see that maybe there's more questions.
I would say the comment I like to add is, okay, we have efficiency and effectiveness, right? So an efficient proposal software will try to load as much information as possible one time and use it in a linear format where people start from here, read all the way down, and agree at the bottom, sign at the bottom. That's how we've always thought. That's how the interaction for people to subscribe to us should be, or to contract us or whatever. And you're thinking, hey, what's the effective version of this? The effective version of this, make it easy for people to pick the right product, make it easy for people to discover how in-depth they want to go, whether they want to subscribe or do a one-time fee if you have that dual offering. And then at the end, you could always look at the agreement before you approve. So I love that. And Carlos, maybe we'll give you the last word so you can close it up.
Yeah, so I just want to reference Hector had a LinkedIn live audio event. If you missed it, it's called left brain, what is it, right brain thinking, or left brain creatives, or like something like that, and right brain accountants. And the concept is about, with the ever changing scope of the environment with technology and automation, as that continues to advance, Daniel Pink wrote a book called A Whole New Mind. It's why right-brainers will rule the future. And it's really about, as the world continues to advance, humanity will only add value with our ability to think creatively and solve complex problems. And that's going to be more important to our success. So as these, changing environments with technology, if we do not adapt and innovate and, force ourselves to think more creatively and have an advantage in the way that we are offering our services and our ways to differentiate, and lastly, to connect with our communities and our customers, then the profession is at risk of becoming a commodity. And that's what this conference is really intended to do, is to help you take your firm to the next level and stay ahead of what those potential threats could be, or those things that could create the current business models obsolete, as it happened in 2000 with the internet, as it happened with social media, right, with e-commerce. And so we want to try to be ahead of that. And that's really the intent behind this.
Awesome. Well, that's it for me. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Omri. And I would love to encourage the Anchor community and the folks that maybe are just looking at Anchor to take a look at finding the creative person inside of you to create new service offerings and stand out and wow your customers from the very first transaction.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, for giving us the time. I hope everybody, got some value out of this, and I hope to see you in Miami. I'm going to be there with everybody on the team. So, and if not, we'll see you on the next webinar, and looking forward to it. Thank you.